They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But what I served my husband that morning wasn't revenge, was justice. Wrapped in silence and delivered with a smile, my name is Margaret Chen, and I'm 57 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago. But the journey that led to that moment started 40 years before, in a small apartment in Queens, New York, where a young immigrant girl learned that survival wasn't just about working hard. It was about working smart. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story isn't just mine. It's for every woman who's ever felt invisible, every wife who's been taken for granted, and every person who's been told they're too old to start over. Let me take you back to that night. The night everything changed. Asterisk, it was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my favorite. The book club met on Tuesdays, and I'd made my famous lemon bars that afternoon. The house smelled like citrus and butter, a scent that used to make Richard smile when he'd walk through the door at 6:30, right on schedule. But that Tuesday, 6:30 came and went. 7 o'clock, nothing. 8 o'clock. I called his cell. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Richard, it's me. Where are you? Call me back. 9 o'clock. I called again. This time it went straight to voicemail. He'd turned off his phone by 10 o'clock. My hands were shaking as I dialed his office. No answer. I called his assistant, Mark. No answer. I called his best friend, Tom. Tom's voice was strange, tight. I'm sure he's fine, Margaret. He probably just lost track of time. Lost track of time. I repeated, for 4 hours. Tom cleared his throat. I really couldn't say. I'm sure he'll explain when he gets home. It's the way he said it, like he knew something I didn't, made my stomach turn. By 11 o'clock. I'd moved past worry and into something else. Something cold and sharp. I'd been married to Richard Chen for 32 years. I knew every pattern, every habit, every excuse. And I knew deep in my bones that something was wrong at midnight. I heard his car in the driveway. I was sitting in the living room in the dark when he walked in. The overhead light flicked on, and there he was, my husband of 3 decades. Standing in the doorway with a smile on his face. Not a sheepish smile. Not an apologetic smile. A satisfied smile. What are you staring at? He said, loosening his tie. I was with the best woman in the world, and you'll never be like her. The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My brain couldn't process what I'd just heard. This was Richard. My Richard. The man who'd held my hand when we buried my parents. The father of my children. The person I'd built my entire adult life around. He walked past me whistling and headed upstairs to bed. I sat there in the dark for a long time, listening to the sound of running water as he brushed his teeth. The creak of the mattress as he got into bed. Our bed. After a while, I heard him snoring. That's when something inside me broke. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe something that had been broken for a long time finally clicked back into place. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things or storm upstairs to confront him. Instead, I went to the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, and sat at the table with my laptop. I had work to do. The next morning, Richard came downstairs at 7:15, same as always. He was wearing his gray suit, the one I'd had dry cleaned on Friday. His hair was still damp from the shower. Coffee ready? He asked, not looking at me. I poured him a cup. Black, no sugar, the way he liked it. I set it on the table in front of him, along with the newspaper. Thanks, he muttered, scanning the headlines. I watched him for a moment. He looked the same as he always did, neat, composed, successful. Richard Chen, senior partner at Chen & Associates, one of the most prestigious accounting firms in Manhattan. Richard Chen, pillar of the community, deacon at our church. Coach of our son's Little League team 20 years ago, Richard Chen, who'd come home at midnight and told his wife he'd been with a better woman. Richard, I said quietly. He looked up, annoyed at being interrupted from his paper. What? Who is she? His face went blank. What are you talking about? The woman you were with last night? The best woman in the world. Who is she? For just a second, just a flash, I saw something cross his face. Guilt, fear. But then it was gone, replaced by irritation. I don't know what you're talking about. I was working late. Until midnight. Yes, there's a big audit coming up. You know how it is. I did know how it was. I'd been hearing about big audits and late nights and important clients for 32 years. But last night, he hadn't said he was working late. He'd said he was with the best woman in the world. Richard, you told me I'm late, he interrupted, standing up. He grabbed his briefcase. We'll talk tonight. He walked out without kissing me goodbye, without even looking at me. The front door closed and I heard his car start. Heard it pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. I sat there with my own cup of coffee, cold now, and opened my laptop. Let me tell you something about myself before we go any further. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. This story gets better. So I promise. I wasn't always Margaret Chen, suburban housewife. I was born Margaret Wong in a tiny apartment in Queens where the walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors arguing in 3 different languages. My parents had come from Hong Kong with nothing but a dream and a willingness to work. 18-hour days. My mother cleaned houses. My father worked in a restaurant kitchen, and me. I learned early that if you wanted to survive in this world, you had to be smart. You had to pay attention. You had to learn skills that nobody could take away from you. While other kids were playing, I was watching my mother negotiate with her employers, watching how she'd smile and nod while they talked down to her, then watching how she'd go home and count every penny they paid her, making sure they didn't cheat her, watching my father slice vegetables faster than anyone else in that kitchen, watching how he'd memorized recipes just by tasting them once. They taught me that being underestimated was a gift. That being overlooked meant you could see everything without anyone noticing you. I used those lessons my whole life. That night, Richard came home at 6:30 sharp. He was smiling again, that same satisfied smile from the night before. "What's for dinner?" he asked. I'd made his favorite beef Wellington, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes. I'd even opened a bottle of the expensive wine he liked. "Wow," he said, sitting down. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said. "Just wanted to make you happy." He smiled at that. A real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. Maybe years. "You're a good wife, Margaret. I don't tell you that enough." Huh. I smiled back. "Thank you, honey." We ate dinner. We talked about his day, about the audit, about our daughter Emily's new job in Boston, and our son David's promotion. Normal conversation, comfortable. Like the night before had never happened. After dinner, Richard went upstairs to bed early. He'd been yawning all through dessert. "I don't know why I'm so tired," he said. "Must be all the late nights catching up with me." "Must be," I agreed. "Get some rest." I cleaned the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters. Then I made myself another cup of tea and sat down with my laptop again. At 2:30 in the morning, I heard the screaming. I ran upstairs to find Richard thrashing in bed. His face twisted in terror, sweat pouring down his temples. "No," he was shouting. "No, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I shook his shoulder. "Richard, wake up." His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. "It's okay," I said softly. "It was just a dream." He sat up, breathing hard, his hands shaking. What happened?" "You were having a nightmare." He ran his hands through his hair, still breathing hard. I don't remember. But it was bad. Really bad. I brought him water. He drank it in one gulp, his hands still trembling. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "No, I need to sleep." He lay back down, but I could see him staring at the ceiling, his eyes wide open in the dark. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Let me tell you about Richard Chen when I met him. I was 22 years old, fresh out of Queens College with a degree in accounting. I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for school waitressing during the day, bookkeeping for a small grocery store in the evenings, and tutoring on weekends. I'd graduated top of my class, and I was hungry. hungry for success, hungry to prove that a girl from Queens with immigrant parents could make it in Manhattan. Richard was 25, already a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm, already on his way up. We met at a networking event for Asian American business professionals. He was confident, charming, handsome in his pressed suit and designer tie. He came from money. His parents owned a successful import-export business. He'd gone to Princeton. He spoke with the easy assurance of someone who'd never had to fight for anything. I fell hard. We dated for 6 months before he proposed. I said yes immediately, stars in my eyes, thinking I'd found my prince. His parents paid for the wedding, a lavish affair with 300 guests at a hotel in Midtown. I wore a white dress that cost more than my parents made in a year. For the first few years, things were good. Great. Even Richard's career took off. He made partner at 32. We bought a house in Westchester, had Emily. Then David. I quit my job to stay home with the kids, even though it killed me a little to give up the career I'd worked so hard for. Just for a few years, Richard had said, until the kids are in school. Then you can go back to work if you want. But when Emily started kindergarten, Richard said the kids still need you at home. Maybe when they're older. And when they were older, he said, my career is really taking off right now. I need you to handle things at home. You understand, right? I understood. I understood that I'd made myself dispensable in the one area where I'd been strong my career end, indispensable in an area where I could easily replace the home. But I'd learned my lessons from my parents. I'd learned to watch, to listen, to prepare, so while I was being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect corporate spouse, attending galas and charity events and cocktail parties, I was also doing something else. I was building. Stick with me here because this is where it gets interesting. Comment below if you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage. When the kids were young, I volunteered to do the books for their school PTA. Nothing fancy, just tracking donations and expenses. But it gave me something Richard didn't know about. Ty was keeping my skills sharp. Then I started doing the same for our church. Then for a local nonprofit that helped immigrant families. Word spread. Soon I was consulting for 3 different organizations, all volunteer work, all just helping out. But I wasn't just helping out. I was networking. I was rebuilding professional relationships. I was staying current with tax law, with accounting software, with financial regulations. And I was doing something else too. Something Richard never noticed because he was too busy with his own career to pay attention to mine. I was taking online courses, getting certified in financial planning, studying estate law, learning about business valuations and divorce proceedings and asset protection because my mother taught me something else. Back in that tiny apartment in Queens, she taught me that hope was fine, but preparation was better. Always have exit money, she used to say. Always have skills nobody can take from you. Always be ready to walk out the door if you need to. I never thought I'd need to walk out, but I was ready if I did. The nightmares got worse. Every night, Richard would wake up screaming, sometimes at midnight, sometimes at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Always the same thrashing, sweating, begging for forgiveness. I'm sorry. He'd scream. Please, I'm so sorry. Don't leave me. Don't go. After a week, he looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, weight falling off him, hands shaking constantly. He started drinking coffee by the pot, taking sleeping pills that didn't work, dozing off at his desk at work. Maybe you should see a doctor, I suggested one morning over breakfast. He snapped at me. I don't need a doctor. I just need to sleep. But you can't sleep. The nightmares, I'm fine, he shouted. Then softer, I'm fine. It's just stress. Work stress. But it wasn't work stress. We both knew it. By the 2nd week, he was a mess. He'd started calling out sick from work, Richard, who'd never missed a day in 30 years. He'd stopped shaving, stopped wearing suits, stopped leaving the house except to drive around aimlessly for hours. Richard, what's happening? I asked one night, sitting on the edge of the bed while he stared at the ceiling. "Talk to me." He turned to look at me, and for the first time in years, I saw real fear in his eyes. "I keep dreaming that I've lost everything," he whispered. "Everything that matters. And I wake up and I'm terrified that it's real." "But it's not real," I said. "It's just a dream, is it?" He grabbed my hand, desperate. "Margaret, you're not going to leave me, are you?" I looked at him. This man who'd told me, just 2 weeks ago, that he'd been with the best woman in the world and I'd never be like her. "Why would I leave you?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. He just squeezed my hand tighter and closed his eyes. While Richard was falling apart, I was building my case. Remember when I said I'd stayed up that first night on my laptop? I wasn't browsing Facebook or shopping online. I was doing what I do best, following the money. Richard thought I was just a housewife out of practice, out of touch. He didn't know that I'd been managing our personal finances for 30 years. He didn't know that I had access to every account, every credit card, every investment. He trusted me to handle the household budget while he focused on the important work. Big mistake. That first night, I'd logged into his credit card accounts. And there it was, a pattern going back 18 months. Monthly charges to the same hotel in Midtown. $347.58 every third Thursday. Charges to a jewelry store in Soho. 3 different purchases over 6 months, totaling $8,400. Charges to expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Always for 2 people, based on the bill amounts. Charges to a florist. Not the florist I used for our home. A different one. I made spreadsheets. I tracked dates, amounts, locations. I cross-referenced them with Richard's work calendar. Every third Thursday. He'd blocked off client dinner on his schedule, but I was just getting started. Next. I accessed his cell phone records easy since I was on the family plan. I downloaded 6 months of call logs and text message metadata. I couldn't see what the messages said, but I could see who he was texting and when. There was one number that appeared constantly, multiple times a day, every day. Long calls, late at night. Short calls early in the morning. I ran the number through a reverse lookup service. Amanda Pierce, age 32. Worked at a rival accounting firm. Subscribe if you want to hear how this unfolds. Trust me, you won't see what's coming. I did what any good accountant would do. I created a profile. I found her LinkedIn, her Facebook, her Instagram. Amanda Pierce, CPA, MBA from Columbia. Ambitious, beautiful, young. In one photo, she was wearing a necklace I recognized. A delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant. I'd seen an $1,800 charge from that Soho jewelry store in March. She was wearing my husband's gift in her Instagram post. Hashtag blessed and hashtag feeling special. I screenshotted everything. Then I went deeper. I called in a favor from an old colleague, someone I'd kept in touch with from my PTA bookkeeping days. Her sister was a private investigator. "I need surveillance photos," I told her. "Can you help?" She could. For 1 week, the investigator followed Richard. She photographed him meeting Amanda at that Midtown hotel. Photographed them holding hands in restaurants. Photographed him kissing her goodbye before getting in his car to come home to me. The report landed in my email 7 days after. Richard had told me he'd been with the best woman in the world. I printed everything. Organized it in a binder. Added my financial spreadsheets, the credit card statements, the phone records. I made copies and stored them in 3 different locations. My safety deposit box, with my lawyer and with my best friend Susan. Then I waited. 3 weeks after the nightmares started. Richard broke. I came downstairs one morning to find him sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, sobbing. "Richard?" I sat down across from him. "What's wrong?" He looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I can't take it anymore. The nightmare's there." "Margaret, I have to tell you something. Here it comes," I thought. The confession, the tears, the begging for forgiveness. I've been seeing someone. I let the silence stretch. Let him sweat. Her name is Amanda. She works at Morrison and Fletcher. We met at a conference 18 months ago, and God, Margaret, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. It did. Are you in love with her? I asked, my voice steady. He hesitated. I don't know. I thought I was, but these nightmares, I keep dreaming about losing you, about losing everything we've built. And I realized he grabbed my hand. I realized that you're my wife. You're the mother of my children. You're my partner. Amanda is. She's exciting, she's new, but she's not you. I looked down at his hand holding mine. It's the same hand that had held Amanda's hand in that restaurant. It's the same hand that had signed credit card slips for hotel rooms and jewelry and flowers for another woman. What do you want me to say? I asked. Say you'll forgive me. Say we can work through this. Say you won't leave me. I pulled my hand away slowly. I need time to think. Margaret, please. I said, I need time to think. He nodded, defeated. Okay, take all the time you need. I'll do anything. Counseling, whatever you want. Just don't leave me. I went upstairs to our bedroom and closed the door. Then I sat on the bed and finally, for the first time since that night, I allowed myself to cry. Not because I was heartbroken. I'd been heartbroken that night, sitting in the dark, listening to him whistle as he got ready for bed. I'd been heartbroken as I'd looked at the surveillance photos, seeing proof of what I already knew. No, I cried because I was free. Free from the illusion of my marriage. Free from pretending. Free from being the perfect wife to a man who didn't appreciate me. I cried for 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and went back downstairs. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to tell you about the things I'd learned to do while Richard was building his empire. When the kids were little, I'd started a blog. Nothing fancy, just a personal finance blog where I shared tips on budgeting, saving, managing household expenses. I posted twice a week, every week, for 10 years. Slowly, very slowly, it grew. First 100 readers, then 1,000, then 10,000. I monetized it with ads, with affiliate links to budgeting apps and financial products. I made my first $100 and felt like a millionaire. The next year, I made 1,000. The year after, 10,000. Richard barely noticed. That's nice, honey, he'd say, when I told him about my blog income. That'll pay for groceries. What he didn't know was that I was investing every penny, learning about stocks, about index funds, about compound interest, building a portfolio that grew quietly, steadily, without anyone paying attention. When the kids went to college, I started doing something else. I became a virtual bookkeeper, working with small businesses remotely. Nothing that interfered with my duties as Richard's wife, of course. Just a few hours here and there, helping startups and small companies manage their finances. I charged reasonable rates at first. Then I got good at it. Really good. I specialized in helping women-owned businesses, immigrant entrepreneurs, people who reminded me of my parents. Word spread. My client list grew. Within 3 years, I was making $60,000 a year, all deposited into my own account, my own business entity, my own future. Richard never asked about it. He assumed it was hobby money, something to keep me busy now that the kids were gone. But it wasn't hobby money. It was freedom money. It was exit money, like my mother had always said. If you're watching this and you've ever felt trapped, comment below. Your story matters by the time Richard confessed his affair. I was making $90,000 a year from my blog and my bookkeeping business. I had $200,000 in investments that Richard knew nothing about. I had clients who valued my work, who sent me referrals, who saw me as a professional, not just someone's wife. I had options, and I'd spent the last 3 weeks consulting with 3 different lawyers, understanding exactly what a divorce would look like, understanding my rights, my entitlements, what I could expect from a settlement. I knew that in New York, marital assets are divided equitably, not necessarily equally. I knew that Richard's affair was relevant. I knew that my contributions to his career-attaining clients, managing the home, raising the children, had value. I knew what my future looked like with Richard, and I knew what it could look like without him. The question was, Which future did I want? That evening, after Richard's confession, I made dinner. Nothing fancy this time, just pasta and salad. We ate in silence. The nightmares, I said finally. When did they start? The night after I came home late. The night you told me you'd been with the best woman in the world. He flinched. I don't remember saying that. You did? You walked in at midnight and you said, I was with the best woman in the world, and you'll never be like her. His face went white. Margaret, I do remember saying it. I swear I don't remember. I'd had a few drinks with Amanda. I don't know what I was thinking. I nodded slowly. And then what happened? What do you mean? After you told me that? After you went to bed? What happened? He looked confused. Nothing. I went to sleep. And then I had the first nightmare. I took a sip of water. Tell me about the nightmares. What happens in them? He shuddered. They're all the same. I come home and you're gone. The house is empty. Everything that makes it a home, your things, your touch, it's all gone. And I'm alone, completely alone. And I realize that I've destroyed everything that mattered. That I've lost you, lost the kids, lost everything. And I'm standing in this empty house, screaming, but no one can hear me. That sounds terrifying, I said. It is God, Margaret, it is. Every night I wake up and I'm so relieved that you're still here, that it was just a dream. But then I remember what I did, and I think, what if it becomes real? What if I really do lose you? I looked at him across the table, my husband of 32 years, the father of my children. The man who'd cheated on me with a woman 25 years younger and then had the audacity to tell me she was better than me. Richard, I said quietly, do you believe in karma? He blinked. What? Karma. Do you believe that what we put out into the world comes back to us? I don't know. Maybe. Why? I stood up and started clearing the dishes. No reason, just wondering. Here's where I'm going to tell you something you might not believe. But I promise you, it's true. Hit subscribe if you believe in the universe's justice. That first night. After Richard told me he'd been with the best woman in the world, after he went upstairs whistling, after I sat in the dark with my breaking, Hartai didn't just open my laptop to check credit cards and phone records. I did something else. I'm not a religious person. Exactly. Not anymore. But I grew up with my grandmother's stories about karma, about the universe balancing itself out, about how what we wish for others comes back to us threefold. And that night, sitting in the dark, I made a wish. I wished that Richard would feel what I was feeling. The fear of losing everything, the terror of being alone, the crushing weight of realizing you'd thrown away something precious for something shiny and new. I wished it with every fiber of my being. I didn't wish him harm. Exactly. I just wished him understanding, empathy, a chance to walk in my shoes, and the universe, it seemed, was listening. Because the nightmares started the very next night. And they didn't stop now. I'm not saying I caused Richard's nightmares with my wish. I'm a rational person, an accountant, someone who deals in facts and figures. But I'm also my grandmother's granddaughter. And I know that sometimes the universe has a way of teaching us lessons we need to learn. For 2 more weeks, I watched Richard suffer through his nightmares. Watched him lose weight, lose sleep, lose his confidence. Watched him become a shadow of the arrogant man who'd walked in at midnight with a smile on his face. And I thought about the girl from Queens who'd worked 3 jobs to pay for college. The young woman who'd fallen in love with a handsome, confident man and thought she'd found her happy ending. The mother who'd sacrificed her career to raise her children. The wife who'd spent 32 years being the perfect corporate spouse. I thought about Margaret Wong before she became Margaret Chen, and I thought about who Margaret Chen could become. Next, on a Tuesday night exactly 1 month after Richard's late-night confession, I sat him down at the kitchen table. I've made a decision. I said, his face filled with hope. You'll give me another chance. I'm filing for divorce. The hope drained away like water from a broken dam. Margaret, no, please. I said I was sorry. I'll end it with Amanda. I'll do counseling. I'll do anything. I know you will, I said. But this isn't about what you'll do anymore. It's about what I deserve. What you deserve. I'll give you anything. The house, money, whatever you want. I smiled. Richard, I don't need you to give me anything. I have my own money, my own business, my own career that I've been building while you were building yours. He looked genuinely shocked. Your blog? Your bookkeeping? Margaret, that's not what? Not a real career. Not enough to support myself. I leaned forward. I make $90,000 a year from my hobby. I have $200,000 in investments you know nothing about. I have a business with 35 clients who value my expertise. I have skills, Richard. Skills I never stopped developing, even when you thought I was just your housewife. His mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. You told me I'd never be like her, I continued. Like Amanda, the best woman in the world. And you were right. I'll never be like her. Because I'm better. I'm 57 years old and I'm just getting started. For 2 more weeks, I watched Richard suffer through his nightmares. Watched him lose weight, lose sleep, lose his confidence. Watched him become a shadow of the arrogant man who'd walked in at midnight with a smile on his face. And I thought about the girl from Queens who'd worked 3 jobs to pay for college. The young woman who'd fallen in love with a handsome, confident man and thought she'd found her happy ending. The mother who'd sacrificed her career to raise her children. The wife who'd spent 32 years being the perfect corporate spouse. I thought about Margaret Wong before she became Margaret Chen, and I thought about who Margaret Chen could become. Next, on a Tuesday night exactly 1 month after Richard's late-night confession, I sat him down at the kitchen table. I've made a decision, I said. His face filled with hope. You'll give me another chance. I'm filing for divorce. The hope drained away like water from a broken dam. Margaret, no, please. I said I was sorry. I'll end it with Amanda. I'll do counseling. I'll do anything. I know you will, I said. But this isn't about what you'll do anymore. It's about what I deserve. What you deserve. I'll give you anything. The house, money, whatever you want. I smiled. Richard, I don't need you to give me anything. I have my own money, my own business, my own career that I've been building while you were building yours. He looked genuinely shocked. Your blog? Your bookkeeping? Margaret, that's not what? Not a real career. Not enough to support myself. I leaned forward. I make $90,000 a year from my hobby. I have $200,000 in investments you know nothing about. I have a business with 35 clients who value my expertise. I have skills, Richard. Skills I never stopped developing, even when you thought I was just your housewife. His mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. You told me I'd never be like her, I continued. Like Amanda, the best woman in the world. And you were right. I'll never be like her. Because I'm better. I'm 57 years old and I'm just getting started. The divorce took 8 months to finalize. Richard fought it at first, then gave up when his lawyer explained what an affair and 32 years of marriage meant in terms of asset division. I got the house, half of his retirement accounts, half of the equity in his firm, alimony for 15 years or until I remarried, which I had no intention of doing. But more than that, I got my freedom. Leave a comment if you've ever had to start over. I'd love to hear your story. The night before the divorce was finalized, Richard called me. The nightmares stopped. He said, when? The day you filed. That very night. I haven't had one since. I didn't say anything. Margaret, can I ask you something? That first night when I came home late, I really don't remember what I said to you. I've tried and tried, but it's just gone. Did I really say that? About Amanda being better than you? Yes, I said. You did? He was quiet for a long moment. I think the universe was punishing me. Maybe, I said. Or maybe it was just showing you what you stood to lose. I lost it anyway. Yes, I said. You did. 2 years after my divorce, I'm sitting in my new office in Manhattan. Not a home office. An actual office with my name on the door. Margaret Wong Financial Services. I stopped using Chen, went back to my maiden name. Went back to being the girl from Queens who knew how to work hard and how to be smart. My business has grown. I now have 3 employees and 65 clients. I specialize in financial planning for women over 50, women divorcing, women widowed, women starting over, women who thought it was too late, who thought they'd missed their chance, who thought they had to accept whatever hand they'd been dealt. I teach them what my mother taught me. Always have exit money. Always have skills. Always be ready to walk out the door. My blog has 200,000 followers now. I write about financial independence, about rebuilding after loss, about turning betrayal into opportunity. I've been featured in Forbes, in the Wall Street Journal, in Money magazine. Last month, I gave a TEDx talk. The title was "It's Never Too Late to Become Who You Were Meant to Be." My daughter Emily called me after watching it. "Mom, I never knew you felt trapped all those years." I didn't, I told her honestly. I was happy raising you and your brother. But I was also preparing. Just in case Dad turned out to be a jerk. I laughed. Just in case I ever needed to save myself. If you're watching this and thinking it's too late for you, stop right now. Subscribe to this channel and let me tell you, it's never too late. My son David asked me recently if I regret anything. "Do you regret marrying Dad?" He asked. "Do you regret those 32 years?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "Those years gave me you and your sister. They taught me patience, taught me to plan, taught me that sometimes the long game is the best game. I don't regret them, but I also don't regret leaving." "Do you ever talk to Dad?" "Sometimes. He's dating someone new, a woman his own age, actually. A widow he met at his church group. Is he happy? I think he's trying to be. He's in therapy now, working on himself, trying to figure out why he did what he did." "What about Amanda?" I smiled. "Last I heard, she dumped him 3 weeks after I filed for divorce. Turns out she wasn't interested in a man going through a messy divorce who couldn't afford to take her to expensive restaurants anymore." David laughed. Then he got serious. "Mom, I'm proud of you. You know that, right? The way you handled everything, the way you built your business, the way you just kept going. It's inspiring." That's when I cried. Not sad tears this time. Happy tears. Proud tears. Because my son saw me. Really saw me. Not as just his mother or his father's wife, but as a woman who'd survived and thrived. Let me tell you about the moment I knew I'd truly moved on. It was 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I was getting ready for a business meeting, my first major corporate client. A consulting gig worth $50,000. I was standing in front of the mirror in my new apartment. A beautiful 2-bedroom in the Upper East Side that I'd bought with my own money. Wearing a navy suit I'd bought myself. Carrying a leather briefcase I'd earned. My hair was styled, my makeup was perfect, and I looked powerful. And I realized I liked this woman in the mirror. Not because she was younger or prettier, or thinner than she'd been before, but because she was free. She was her own person. She didn't answer to anyone. She didn't have to make herself smaller to fit into someone else's life. I smiled at my reflection, and the woman in the mirror smiled back. That's when I knew Richard had done me a favor. He'd set me free even if he didn't mean to. He'd given me the push I needed to become who I was always meant to be. Comment below. You've ever had a moment where you looked in the mirror and truly liked who you saw? People ask me all the time, "Margaret, how did you do it? How did you survive? How did you turn betrayal into success?" And I tell them the truth. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was preparation, patience, and the lessons I learned from a little apartment in Queens where the walls were thin and the dreams were big. Lesson 1. Never stop learning. When I quit my job to raise my kids, I didn't quit learning. I took online courses. I read books. I stayed current with my field. Because I knew that skills are the one thing nobody can take from you, not a husband, not an employer, not anyone. When you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start dying. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, mentally, professionally. I was 55 years old when I started over, but I wasn't starting from scratch. I was starting from experience. Lesson 2. Always have your own money. My mother used to hide cash in a coffee can under the sink. $20 here, $50 there. Money my father didn't know about. Exit money, she called it. Money that would get her and me out if things ever got bad. I did the same thing but digitally. My blog income, my bookkeeping business, my investments, Richard knew about them. But he didn't know the amounts. He didn't know I was building a safety net that would catch me when I fell. Every woman should have her own money. Not secret money, necessarily, just money that's yours, that you control, that gives you options. Because the day you need exit money, it's too late to start saving it. Lesson 3. Your value isn't determined by someone else's opinion. Richard told me I'd never be like Amanda. And he was right. I'd never be 25 years younger. I'd never be the shiny new thing. I'd never be the woman who didn't know about his bad habits and his morning breath and his tendency to leave wet towels on the bathroom floor. But that didn't make me less valuable. It made me different, more experienced, wiser, stronger. Your value doesn't decrease because someone doesn't see it. Gold doesn't become less valuable because someone mistakes it for brass. Lesson 4. Timing is everything. I didn't file for divorce the night Richard confessed. I waited, I planned, I built my case. I made sure I knew exactly what I was entitled to, exactly what my life would look like after, exactly how I would support myself. Anger makes you want to act immediately. But wisdom tells you to wait, to plan, to be strategic. The best revenge isn't acting in the heat of the moment. It's acting with cold, calculated precision when you're ready. Lesson 5. The universe has a sense of humor. Those nightmares Richard had. I'm still not sure if I caused them with my wish or if they were just his guilty conscience manifesting. But either way, they taught him something I couldn't have taught him with words. They taught him what it felt like to lose everything, and maybe that was exactly what he needed to learn. About a year after the divorce, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hello, Mrs. Chen. Ms. Wong. This is Amanda Pierce. I sat down slowly. Amanda, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I wanted to. I needed to apologize for what I did, for the affair, for everything. I stayed silent, waiting. I was young and stupid, she continued. I thought I was in love. I thought Richard was going to leave you for me. But he didn't. He fought for you. And when you filed anyway, I realized I'd helped destroy a marriage for nothing. You didn't destroy my marriage, Amanda, I said quietly. Richard did that. You were just the weapon he used. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. I lost my job. People found out about the affair, and Morrison and Fletcher let me go. They said I'd violated ethics policies by having a relationship with someone from a competing firm. My reputation is ruined. I can't get hired anywhere. Part of me felt satisfaction at that. The younger, angrier Margaret would have celebrated her downfall. But the woman I'd become, she felt something else, something unexpected. Pity, Amanda? I said you made a mistake, a big one. But you're what, 33 now? 34. 34. You have time to rebuild, to learn from this, to become better? How? She whispered. Everyone knows what I did. Then go somewhere they don't know. Start over. Use this as your rock bottom and build up from there. That's what I did. There was a long pause. You started over at 55. 57, actually. And I'm doing better than I ever did before. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are? I said. Trust me. If I can do it, anyone can. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about that conversation. Thinking about forgiveness, about growth, about how hurt people hurt people. I didn't forgive Amanda for the affair. That wasn't mine to forgive. That was between her and her conscience. But I did forgive her for being young and foolish and making terrible choices. Because I'd been young once too. Maybe not foolish in the same way, but I'd made my share of mistakes. If you're watching this and you've made mistakes you regret, comment starting over below. We all deserve second chances. Here's what nobody tells you about getting older. It's actually amazing. I know that sounds crazy in a culture that worships youth, that sells anti-aging creams and filters and procedures designed to make you look 25 forever. But I'm 57 years old, and I've never been happier. Not because my life is perfect. Not because I don't have problems, but because I finally know who I am in my 20s. I was trying to prove myself. In my 30s, I was trying to be the perfect wife and mother. In my 40s, I was trying to hold on to a marriage that was already slipping away. But in my 50s, I stopped trying to be anything other than myself. And that's when everything changed. I started wearing what I wanted, not what was appropriate for my age. Started speaking up in meetings instead of waiting to be called on. Started charging what I was worth instead of what I thought people would pay. Started saying no to things that didn't serve me, and yes to things that scared me. I took a pottery class. I learned to play the piano. I traveled to Japan by myself, something I'd always wanted to do, but Richard had never been interested in. I went on dates. Some good, some terrible, all educational. I learned that I didn't need a man to complete me. But I was open to meeting someone who complimented me. I made new friends, women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who were also building second acts, also refusing to fade quietly into the background. We called ourselves the Not Done Yet Club. We met once a month for dinner and wine and laughter. We celebrated each other's successes and supported each other through failures. One of them, a woman named Patricia who'd started a catering business at 62 after her husband died, told me something I'll never forget. Margaret. We spent the first half of our lives becoming who others wanted us to be. Now we get to spend the second half becoming who we want to be. That's not a consolation prize. That's the whole damn point. She was right. Last month, I got an email that made me laugh out loud. It was from a booking agent for a major women's conference in Chicago. They wanted me to be a keynote speaker. The topic: financial independence after 50. It's never too late to start over. The keynote, not a panel, not a breakout session. The main event? I said yes immediately. Standing on that stage, looking out at 2,000 women, I felt something I'd never felt in all my years as Richard's wife, attending his corporate events, smiling and nodding and making small talk. I felt seen. I told them my story, all of it. The affair, the nightmares, the divorce, the rebuild. I showed them my financial projections. From when I started my business conservative, estimates that I'd blown past within 2 years. I told them about my mother's coffee can and my grandmother's karma stories. I told them about the girl from Queens who learned that being underestimated was a superpower. And I told them the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could have happened, because if Richard hadn't cheated, still be playing small. I'd still be the perfect corporate wife, living in that big house in Westchester, attending charity galas and pretending to be happy. I'd never have known what I was capable of. When I finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. A standing ovation that lasted 3 minutes. Women were crying. Some were laughing. All of them were inspired. Subscribe to this channel if you believe women over 50 are just getting started. We need to change the narrative. After my speech, I did a meet and greet. Woman after woman came up to me with their stories. I'm 53 and my husband just left me for his secretary. I don't know what to do. I'm 61 and I've never worked outside the home. Is it really too late? I'm 48 and I'm terrified to leave my marriage because I don't think I can support myself. To each one, I said the same thing. It's not too late. You're not too old. You are more powerful than you know. And I meant it. Every word. People always ask me about Richard. How he's doing now, whether he's remarried. If he regrets what he did, I don't talk to him much anymore. Occasional texts about the kids, holiday cards, that sort of thing. But I do know some things. He never remarried. The woman he was dating, the widow from church, ended things after 6 months. Apparently, Richard had become too needy, too afraid of being alone. His career plateaued. He's still a partner at his firm, still making good money, but the drive is gone. His colleagues say he seems tired, like he's just going through the motions. He sold the house in Westchester. Too big, too many memories. He lives in a condo in White Plains now. It's nice enough, but it's not a home. It's just a place where he sleeps. Emily told me that when she visits him, the condo is always too cold, too quiet. No pictures on the walls. No personal touches. Just furniture and empty space. It's like he's punishing himself, she said. Like he thinks he doesn't deserve to be comfortable. David said Richard asked him once late at night after too much wine, "Do you think your mother will ever forgive me?" "I don't know, Dad," David had said. "Do you think you deserve it?" Richard didn't have an answer. Here's the thing. I don't hate Richard. I did for a while. But hate is exhausting, and I had better things to do with my energy. What I feel for him now is sadness. Sadness for the man who had everything and threw it away for something shiny. Sadness for the person who couldn't see the value of what he had until it was gone. But mostly feel grateful. Grateful that he showed me who he really was. Grateful that he gave me a reason to leave. Grateful that he pushed me to become the woman I was always meant to be. Richard didn't lose me. He lost himself. And that's the real tragedy. One of the best parts of building my business has been the community I've found. Remember I mentioned the Not Done Yet Club? That grew from 6 women meeting for dinner to a network of 300 women across the tri-state area. We have monthly meets, online forums, mentorship programs, and an annual retreat in the Catskills. We call ourselves the Silver Phoenixes, women rising from the ashes of divorce, widowhood, career setbacks, or just plain life disappointments to build something beautiful. Last year, we launched a microloan program for women over 50 who want to start businesses. Small amounts, $5,000, $10,000, but enough to get started. Enough to buy equipment or take a class or launch a website. We've funded 42 businesses so far. A bakery, a consulting firm, a pet sitting service, a jewelry line, a podcast production company, each one run by a woman who thought she was done, thought her best years were behind her, thought it was too late to dream big. Drop a comment if you have a dream you've been too scared to pursue. Age is just a number. I love watching these women transform. I love seeing the light come back into their eyes when they realize they have skills, they have value. They have something to offer the world beyond being someone's wife or mother or employee. One woman. Rosa came to us at 63. She'd been a housekeeper her whole life, cleaning other people's homes while her husband worked construction. When he died suddenly of a heart attack, she was left with nothing, no savings, no pension, no plan. We gave her a $10,000 loan to start her own cleaning business. Not just any cleaning business, a luxury cleaning service for high-end clients. Using organic products and specialized techniques she'd learned over 40 years. Within 6 months, she had 12 regular clients paying premium rates. Within a year, she'd hired 3 employees. Within 2 years, she'd paid back the loan and was making more money than she'd ever made in her life. "I thought I was just a cleaner," she told me, tears in her eyes. "I didn't know I was an entrepreneur." That's what we do. We help women see themselves differently. We help them understand that experience isn't a liability, it's an asset. That age isn't a barrier, it's a foundation. 6 months ago, I was hosting a financial planning workshop in my office when my assistant knocked on the door. "Margaret, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." I excused myself and stepped into the lobby. It was Amanda. She looked different. Older, yes, but also settled, more mature. She was wearing a simple dress, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a professional bun. "Amanda," I said, genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to thank you," she said, "in person, for what you said to me 2 years ago. About starting over." "Did you start over?" She nodded. "I moved to Portland." Took a job at a small firm, starting from scratch. I worked hard, kept my head down, rebuilt my reputation. Last month, I made partner. That's wonderful. But more than that, she continued, I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself, on why I made the choices I made, on becoming a better person. And I met someone, a good man, someone who respects me, who challenges me, who sees me as a partner, not a trophy. I smiled. I'm happy for you. You didn't have to be kind to me, she said, her voice cracking. You had every right to tell me to go to hell. But you didn't. You gave me hope. And I wanted you to know that it made a difference. We stood there for a moment. Two women who'd been on opposite sides of the same painful story. Now just two humans trying to do better. Can I ask you something? Amanda said, why? Why were you kind to me? I thought about it. Because hurt people hurt people. And healed people heal people. I was healing, and I wanted to pass that along. Even to you. She hugged me then. Quick, awkward, but genuine. And then she left. After she was gone, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. From that night 3 years ago when Richard walked in with his cruel words, to this moment when the woman who'd helped break my marriage was thanking me for helping rebuild her life. Life is strange. Beautiful and strange and completely unpredictable. People look at my business, my income, my achievements, and they say, Margaret, you're so successful. And I am. By any objective measure, I've succeeded. I've built a thriving business. I'm financially independent. I'm respected in my field. I'm happy. But you want to know what real success looks like to me? It's Emily calling me to ask for business advice because she's thinking about leaving her corporate job to start her own consulting firm. You did it, Mom, she said. If you can start over at 57, I can do it at 34. It's David telling his wife, my daughter-in-law Jennifer, make sure you keep your own accounts. Keep your skills sharp. My mom taught me that. It's my granddaughter, 5-year-old Sophie, telling her kindergarten teacher, my grandma is a boss. She has her own company. It's the email I got last week from a woman who heard my TEDx talk. I'm 59 years old. I just enrolled in community college. Thank you for showing me it's not too late. That's success. Not the money, not the business, not the recognition, though those are nice. The real success is knowing that my story has inspired other women to write their own. If this story has inspired you, hit that subscribe button and share it with a woman who needs to hear it. I'm 57 years old. In our culture, that's supposed to be the beginning of the end. The time when you fade into the background, when you become invisible, when your best years are behind you. But I've never felt more visible, never felt more powerful, never felt more alive. And I want you to know something. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever age you are, it's not too late for you either. Maybe your husband cheated. Maybe you're divorced. Maybe you're widowed. Maybe you've been out of the workforce for 20 years. Maybe you think your skills are outdated, your dreams are foolish, your time is past. You're wrong. Your time is now. Right now. This moment. This breath. This heartbeat. The lessons you've learned, the experiences you've had. The battles you've survived, they're not liabilities. They're your superpowers. They're what make you valuable, what make you wise, what make you extraordinary. But you have to believe it. You have to decide that you're not done yet. You have to choose yourself, especially when everyone else has stopped choosing you. Start small if you need to. Take a class. Start a blog. Volunteer somewhere. Learn a new skill. Save a little money. Build a little confidence. Take one tiny step toward the person you want to become, and then take another, and another, and another. Before you know it, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. You'll look in the mirror and like who you see. You'll remember the woman you used to be and feel grateful for the woman you've become. That's what I did. That's what countless other women have done. That's what you can do. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's been 3 years since Richard walked in at midnight and told me I'd never be like the best woman in the world. He was right, of course. I'll never be like her. I'll never be 25 again, never be new and shiny and ignorant of his flaws. But I'm something better. I'm free. I'm powerful. I'm successful on my own terms. I'm living a life I designed, not a life someone else handed me last week. I hired my fourth employee, a 52-year-old woman named Linda, who'd been out of the workforce for 25 years. She came to the interview nervous, apologizing for the gaps in her resume, convinced she wasn't qualified. I hired her on the spot. "You're exactly what I'm looking for," I told her. "You've managed a household, raised kids, balanced budgets, solved problems, handled crises. You're more qualified than you think," she cried. Then she thanked me. Then she asked, "Why are you giving me this chance?" "Because someone needs to," I said. "And because I remember what it feels like to be underestimated, to think you're not enough, to believe the lies people tell you about your worth." Today is Tuesday, my favorite day of the week, just like it was 3 years ago. But this Tuesday, I'm not making lemon bars for a book club. I'm not waiting for a husband who's 4 hours late. I'm in my office, mentoring a new client, celebrating a business milestone, planning next year's growth strategy, and tonight, I'll go home to my apartment, the one I bought, the one I furnished, the one that's entirely mine, and I'll make myself dinner and pour myself a glass of wine. And toast to the woman in the mirror, the woman who refused to stay broken, the woman who turned betrayal into success, the woman who learned that 57 isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of the best chapter. If you're still watching, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to this channel, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and share this with any woman who needs to hear it. Remember, it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. My name is Margaret Wong, and this is my story. But more importantly, this is your permission slip to write yours. The end. No, the beginning. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Your time means everything to me. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you think differently about what's possible, I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of triumph, transformation, and second chances. Comment below with where you're watching from and one dream you're going to pursue. No matter your age, share this video with a woman who needs to know it's not too late. Hit the like button if you believe women over 50 are unstoppable, and remember, your story isn't over. It's just beginning. See you in the next video, where I'll be sharing more real-life stories of women who refuse to give up, who turn their pain into power, and who prove that age is just a number when you have courage in your heart. Until then, keep believing in yourself. You've got this. Margaret, if you want to learn more about financial independence, starting over after 50, or building a business later in life, check out the resources I've linked in the description below. I'm rooting for you.